Will, what's going on, man? What's poppin'? You feeling?
Not much. How are you doing, Tommy?
Man, I'm good. I'm good. It's been a minute, man. I think what last time we chopped it up was like last year or something. Oh, no, it was a couple. Was it last year
It
or the
was
year
last
before?
year.
Okay, all right. My years just keep like they keep running by me, man. And you out here leveling up, making different moves. What you been on lately, man? I've been seeing you. Like didn't you have a meetup or something for your channel and a bunch of other stuff?
I did. So I had a meetup last year in August, um, just to show my appreciation to the fans of my channel, and to say thank you to everybody. It was also my birthday, right? It
Okay,
was a few days after my birthday,
okay,
and we went out there by Morehouse at the Russell Center, the Russell Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship,
okay.
and it was a great turnout. Had a lot of people come in from out of town, and absolutely enjoyed the time.
Okay, fantastic. So did you go to an HBCU or how did you get connected to, going out there to make it happen? Is that what? Are you in the South?
I am in Atlanta, Atlanta,
Okay,
Georgia.
hot Atlanta, hot Atlanta. Okay, all right. So did you know TLA before you went on the podcast before you went on YouTube?
So no, I did not. I did not know about TLA beforehand, and I did not go to an HBCU. I went to Georgia State
Okay,
University, which is right there, right next to the AUC, the Atlanta University Center, which is a lot of HBCUs such as Morris Brown. You got Morehouse, Clark Atlanta University, and also Spelman. So
okay,
those are the HBCUs in that area. But it's if you go to Georgia State, you're pretty much downtown Atlanta.
okay, okay. So did you originally, so just kind of, because I want to walk into your background before we kind of discuss
Mhm.
today's topics. Um, how did you get into IT? I remember you mentioned something about your father and schooling or whatnot. Did you know you wanted to go into IT? Like, was that your intention? Do you feel like you needed the schooling? Can you give us a little bit of your background on that one?
Yeah, so I got into IT through my dad. I wanted to become an entrepreneur slash artist, and I told my dad about it, and he said, "Nah, you're gonna be broke, so you might as well just go ahead and get into the same thing he's in, which is at the time he was a police officer, and he would do IT for the police precinct. And because he did that, I decided to go and get my degree in computer science at Georgia State. And ever since then, I've been in data engineering. Pretty much what we do is we just move data from one place to the other. That's pretty much how I got into it.
Okay. So what are, the salaries when you look at data engineering? What are like the starting entry level salaries? Is that something that typically requires a degree these days, or has the tide kind of changed a little bit?
Yeah. Give me 1 second. Let me pull my chair up right quick.
Okay. All right.
Hold on. Let me do this. All right. Perfect. So yeah, to answer your question, the salaries you should expect would be starting off. You should expect like 65 to 70,000 starting off in Atlanta. You can see some higher entry level salaries for data engineering. You probably at the very highest you may see 80,
Okay.
but that's just in Atlanta.
Okay.
And if you are going from entry level into being an intermediate and or just a regular data engineer 1 or 2, you should expect maybe around like 100,000, right around there, 90 to 100 something thousand. And then senior, you go up even further depending on what type of industry you're a part of, such as if you're in the consultant industry, you should expect around 130, maybe 160, and it goes up from there.
Okay. Okay. So mastery, it pays as you level up. So are most of the people in your field, as far as like data the data entry field, are they typically degree? Like, do they typically have degrees when they go in, or are they typically certified, or how does that path work out?
Yes, you for data engineering, data analytics, data science, you pretty much would need to have a degree
Okay.
for the most part.
Okay.
This is just one of the paradigms within IT.
Okay.
When I say paradigms, like one of the slices of pie
Hmm.
that you could see, and for the most part, you would need a degree. You don't need a certification per se, but you
Okay.
do need a degree for
Okay.
this.
Okay. All good. All good. That's interesting. I'm glad you kind of broke that down a little bit. Because so the reason, and I'll preface this, the reason why I decided to kind of do this episode is there's a young man who wants to go into IT. But I wanted to kind of break down the fact that IT is a very, very broad field. I know people who they have experience or they have certifications and they also have degrees, and I know people who don't have degrees. And what I found is when I was deployed to Africa, we actually had a cybersecurity element, a part of our joint task force. Because now the more and the more that we evolve, or we evolved as a military. I actually got out last month, after 14 years. But the more that we appreciate you. The more that we evolve as a force, we have to fight on the ground and in the technology space, right? And so what we were finding is people, they wanted to hire people on the active component side, but the problem was they weren't necessarily getting the same experience as they were being a National Guardsman. Because when you're in the National Guard, you have a full time job, right? And usually their full time job is something in the IT field. And so what I'm finding a lot of times is a lot of people are coming in because they were good with computers. They start at the IT help desk, and they're making decent money. And I've seen entry salaries as far as just having experience. You can go to certificate route, or the experience route. Starting off at 30K, and without the debt as far as degree and those things going on, that's a pretty lofty salary. Not having any bills, kids, or degrees or anything like that.
Hmm?
Um, so what is when we look at IT, what are some of the starting roles that you would say don't necessarily require a degree as much?
Help desk, a SOC analyst, a NOC analyst. If you're trying to go the cybersecurity route, you can become a software engineer without having a degree. You just have to go for the types of companies that would allow that.
Okay.
A lot of startups hire people without degrees.
Really? Okay.
People who go to boot camps,
Okay.
they're able to get degrees. Matter of fact, I remember I applied for a position working for Chick-fil-A, and it was between me and this other guy. And I always like to tell the story. I had a degree in computer science with a major in, well, with a concentration in databases, and the other guy, he had a degree in music, but he had a boot camp.
Really?
So, and can you guess who got the job at Chick-fil-A corporate?
Homie got the job.
Yeah, he
Being
did.
from a boot camp. And why were they looking at his boot camp experience over your degreed experience?
So it's a difference between getting a degree and getting a boot camp. So the biggest difference is I think it had to deal with he was a little bit more fresh on the he probably might have just prepared a little bit better than I did.
Because you got to stay on
But
top of it.
yeah, you got to stay on top of it. And so my knowledge goes from over 4 years
Hmm.
of studying, but it's not studying specifically industry standard things. He went through a boot camp and they was like, okay, this is what you need to know, and they get you to know it within, like, let's say, 6 months. He might have just graduated from his boot camp, so it's fresh on his mind, and he didn't need to think back over 4 years. Okay, this is what you have to do.
Hmm.
So it all comes from preparation as well.
Okay, awesome. And that was one of the things is I actually the young man, I actually bought the cybersecurity plus package for like a grand plus, And so I was actually going to go into cybersecurity, um, if it wasn't for I bought CompTIA Plus, Security Plus, because I
Okay.
actually took a 40-hour course through the Department of the Navy. I was in the Army, but I was granted the opportunity to take that course, and they were talking about it. So I went through them, did the professor, started studying on the Professor Messer side, but I ended up landing a gig here in Chicago, making pretty good money as a plant supervisor. I like management, so it helps out, but I also got a PMP while I was over there. So one of the
Awesome.
things was is a lot of people don't realize a project management professional degree helps you manage teams. And what I started to do when I was networking with the IT guys, like we're talking about like high level security cats, and on the military base, they were explaining it was like a PMP would get you 6 figures, and I was like, what? And then I found out that his manager or like one of his bosses that was managing the projects from a distance, they didn't know what they were talking about. They didn't even really even have a background in IT. That was the craziest part. But because they had the PMP, they were enabled to lead those teams. And so
Mhm.
it was wild to me. That was really crazy. I actually got somebody years ago. I actually got somebody hired on at Jimmy John's in IT,
Okay.
and it was simple. He was like Jimmy interviewed him, and he was like, if something happens, what do you do? He's like, and he was a military cat, so he goes, I'll figure it out. I'll Google it. And that was
Yep.
his entry to IT. That was crazy to me because it was a recommendation. I'm a veteran. He was a veteran, so I wanted to put my guy on. That's why I have the network, right? Because I realized I had a gift for kind of connecting people and their passions and things like that. So that's really really huge. What are some of the other? So I'm looking at if we're looking at the holistic picture. What do you lately? There has been like an IT layoff for big companies.
Mhm.
What do you think is the root cause of some of those things, and how are those things going along?
A lot of companies overhire people.
Mm,
So you'll have software engineers or you'll have data engineers, whatever, right? Whatever these high earning positions are, and you'll just have too many of them. Sometimes you have people putting people on, like nepotism, or you know you have people getting a job. They're not necessarily good at the job per se, but they have the position, getting paid a lot of money. And then when the recession comes in, you'll see people getting laid off. You see people getting laid off regardless, but you see it, and it's so popularized right now with all these big companies, Google, Microsoft, Meta, um, GitHub. You have all of these companies that will start laying off, and it gets a lot of traction. But in actuality, they just lay off people because they just have too much overhead.
mm,
It's a lot of money to hire on people. Um, a lot of people, they don't understand that it actually costs a lot of money just to hire people, because you have to hire on recruiters. You have to pay for advertisements. You have to pay to put your posting, your job posting on these job boards. You have to also then be competitive in the market, which is also another reason as to why when your salary does not match up with somebody who just got hired on recently, you may have been at the position for like several years.
mm,
So somebody new can get a higher pay than you do. But in actuality, you have people who will have their job for, like, let's say 10 to 20 years at one company, and then they end up getting laid off.
mm,
You know.
mm. Well, and that's the tough part about that is what I'm finding more and more is a lot of people when they end up getting laid off, they didn't stay on top of their certifications. That was one of the things that when I was taking the Security Plus courses, the 40-hour courses, and I was talking through it, and I told him, hey, I knocked out the PMP, I did these things. He was like, what you got to do is you got to make sure that you stay in your IT library of of levels to reach and stay on top of your certifications and continue to stay on top of those even while you're working, right? And so a lot of people, you'll go about 10 years, the IT field, and we see this in every field, right? The field, like all the jobs have changed, right? But you haven't changed. You haven't evolved. So it's cheaper for me to let you go and get somebody who's fresh on top of it, or hire somebody, with recent experience, boot camp experience, because the industry changes that quick. Technology changes that quick. right? Pretty soon we probably gonna be looking at cats, having to, hey, can you work with AI? How do you feel about that? Are you the man there? Are you the type of person to figure these things out? Because one of the worst things that I want as a supervisor myself, as a manager myself, I don't want to have to solve your IT problems. I want it fixed. But the problem is, I'm seeing a lot of people and a lot of companies that roll out a solution. The DoDs, they're bad at this. They'll buy a solution or some new software, and so we got this whole stack, this whole library of programs that was sold to us that nobody knows how to work. And the people that typically keep the job security are the people that figure out how to make them work to a certain level, but they don't outprice themselves out of a job. It's kind of a weird industry, you know.
Mm.
Uh, what are your thoughts of how can you create job security? What are some things that you do on a routine basis to make sure that you're maintaining your job and staying on top of the things that you need to do in the IT world?
Yeah, as you said before, Tommy, staying on your certifications, but also just continuing learning, going to conferences, going to meet new people, getting your network together. Because let's say if you lose your job, right, for whatever reason,
Hmm.
then you have a network of people to pull from. You can have, I say for an example, right? I recently went to Render ATL, the conference, made a whole bunch of connections, and met a lot of recruiters. Now, these recruiters, they can help you to get further along in the interview process. So there's nothing that's going to stop you from getting laid off if the company is like, hey, we got to let go of all the contractors, right? You're a contractor. You get in there, you have to wait 6 months before your contract ends, and then you have the possibility to become full time. But you may get laid off still,
Mm.
right? It happened to me before. That's actually why I started my channel. I was a contractor, 6 months to hire. Ended up getting laid off after 6 months because the company just, though the budget was cut by like $500,000.
Mm.
So you can't really do anything about those types of things. But what you can do is make sure that you have a backup plan, and always keep your interviewing skills up to par. So even if you're not really looking for a job, you may want to try and have an interview here or there, test the water, see what's in the market, and then you'll be able to have a little bit more security than you would if you just put all your eggs into one basket.
100%. That's real. I'm glad you said that because I think one of the things is when you look at a lot of individuals, they're introverts, right? People don't realize this, but I'm actually a natural introvert myself. But I have learned to practice over the years. I used to when I was in college. So I got a degree in business communication because I was going to school to become an army officer, right? So I wanted to understand the world of business. But when I used to practice for my speeches and my interviews, I used to talk to chairs. I used to review interview topics and subjects. I did an episode about this on the Bag Talk, about the STAR method: situation, task. What was the situation? What was the task that you had to do? What was the action you took, and what was the result of that action? Right. So the STAR method, it helps me with interviewing. But staying on top of that, continuing to do interviews helps you out a lot. Because what I found is I was watching a video, when I was doing down the CompTIA route. It was one of those things where I was going down the route and they were like, hey, what would you do in this certain situation? And the person that won the interview, they could explain the process. They can walk through the troubleshooting of that issue. And so now I found on Discords, all these other things, like I joined the Wealth Squad recently, and they talk stocks, they talk career, they talk a bunch of different things. But on that Discord, they're leading you down a path of, hey, these are things to see in the interviews. And one thing that you talked about was at these conferences, your network is your net worth, right? The people will plug you into a job quicker than than you just applying out of the blue.
Yep.
And that's one thing is I don't know, do you work for a smaller company or a bigger company? One thing I found is a lot of people they'll gloss over the smaller companies and go for the bigger companies like the Googles, and stuff like that instead of looking at Joe Schmo's small. They did 100 million last year. They not a Google, but at the same time, they have IT personnel, and they would fit in well there, at least for the entry piece. What I found is a lot of people, they'll work for an IT company, they'll work for a company in IT for 6 months, and then they'll double their salary on the next go round.
Hmm. Very true. Yeah, because that's what you'll actually see people, these software engineers or somebody who's trying to get into Google, pay like all these courses, like take courses just to get that job, that one specific job in a FANG company. FANG company being, well, Facebook, but it's not called Meta, Amazon, Netflix, and Google, and all those Silicon Valley companies, large companies, but um, they'll gloss over everything else. You know,
Hmm.
you can work at a whole bunch of different places. Like even though Pinterest is kind of a larger company, still it's just not as big as like a Google or a Facebook.
Hmm. But they still need cloud security. They still need all these
Yep.
other things. I think a lot of people, when they went over to the cloud, you still need somebody to maintain the cloud. The cloud is just not like you put it in the cloud and it's gone, right?
Hmm.
A lot of people don't understand that. So before we answer this question and we talk about this, so this is actually the person that I created the episode for. Shout out to Duran. I appreciate you tapping in to this episode, bro. So
Hmm.
with he was talking about. I'm gonna kind of give my piece on this, and then you kind of talk about this a little bit. So the cybersecurity. So I sent him an email, and I was gonna give him a cybersecurity course, the CompTIA Security Plus, the package for like pennies on a dime, right? Because I talked to his mom at work, and she was like, "Hey, my son is looking to get into IT. That'll get you certified." That course I have inside of Duran, inside of that actual course that I sent you, there are actually one test. There's a test in there, and then there's a retest, and then there's also the practicals, the practical exercises inside the actual lead up to taking those exams. So the entire package that I sent you has literally everything inclusive. But here's the cold part: you can take a cybersecurity boot camp, and it'll be way less than college. And then if you go, you do the course that I sent you, and then you also knock out that exam. Now you got the boot camp and you certified. So you're not just walking in with the boot camp. You also got the certification through CompTIA Cybersecurity Plus. Go ahead. You want to spit on this?
Yeah. So let me read the question. So he says, "Hey, quick question. I attended a private college for over a year for cybersecurity. However, I had to take a step back. I heard you mention the boot camp. Can I gain certification through a boot camp?" So your question, can you gain a certification through a boot camp? You can say that you have gone through a boot camp. You've been certified, and it says, "Hey, I have the experience to be able to go through this boot camp." There's plenty of different ones. Now, Tom, you brought up that they have cybersecurity boot camps, and the ones I'm familiar with are more so software engineering. But I would say that there's a lot of people who go through these boot camps and are successful with landing a job because they do have people on site who can help you get a job. Like they partner with different companies, recruiters, and hiring managers to be able to get you a job. So if that's just your goal to be able to get a job, I would say to look at your budget, see if you're able to be able to actually go through a boot camp. You even have some assistance and scholarships for boot camps as well. So you had to look into all those things before you make that decision. And also I know that you. It says that he attended a private college for cybersecurity for a year. So I don't know what kind of degree he was trying to get for it, or if he was trying to get an associate or
Yeah.
a.
So I
But
think the biggest struggle that happened is when he went to switch, his credits didn't actually transfer over.
okay.
And that was kind of why I was having a conversation along the lines of ways to navigate it outside the educational system, because
Mm.
one of the thing is the problem is when you start compiling debt and you take that break away from the class and you're going to a different school, that also creates a whole nother roadblock. And
Yes.
so to make it more expedient, that's why I offered up hit the actual exams, so he can actually be certified in CompTIA Security Plus. because
Right.
that adds another ring to his belt. And so if he's taking that and he does the boot camp, he's gonna be, I think, if he finds the right boot camp, he's gonna be, links over where he needs to be. Because a lot of people will get the boot camp, but their boot camp certification won't necessarily land out for them. My
Mhm.
original goal was a bachelor's degree, he said.
Okay. hmm Yeah. So if you go both routes work. Let me just say that both routes work. I also would agree with you, Tommy, is that debt for a college degree is a lot. Um, it can cripple a lot of people if they aren't able to, you know, get the job or be able to pay it off. You definitely want to be able to pay off your debt. Don't take on more than what you can. But when we're talking about cybersecurity, it's such a lucrative uh, industry to get into. It's a great way of being able to live a prosperous life when you talk about finances, working from home, opportunities to grow. And if you're talking about whether if you should go the boot camp and certification route, I think that it would make you way more profitable than somebody who is starting off with nothing. So yeah, taking that course, getting that certification, especially I heard of Professor Messer before.
Mm,
My dad has gotten his Security Plus before as well. So
really?
my dad has the A Plus, Security Plus, ITIL, CCNA. He has a whole bunch of different
Oh, he
certifications.
doing it.
Yes, yes, he is. He even has he has the the Scrum,
Yeah,
the
that
Scrum
scrum is hot.
Master.
Yeah.
Yep. So he has gone through Professor Messer before. He's been able to see success with it. So I would say go the route of if go the route of getting the course and then the boot camp, depending on your finances as well. I would definitely say go ahead and get the certification regardless, though.
Yeah, because I mean, I think I paid $1,000 for the course plus the certification, and I still have access to it until through, I believe, September. He's got the dates. I've sent him the email about it. But I
Hey,
mean,
need to hop on it.
I'm giving it to him for 500. Like that's just it's unheard of because he's got
Mm.
two retakes inside of it. You know what I'm saying? And so like literally, if he don't knock this out, I'm looking at the clock like I might go ahead and knock that bad boy out. He say no. You know what I'm saying? But it's just one of those things where we want you to be supplied with the most information. And you going into data engineering, there are so most of the degrees. What I found in my research is a lot of the degrees are more geared to research and data. A lot of the people that are getting the degrees, because with cybersecurity, it's always evolving. And so, what I want to stress to Durand is do it now, get it done quicker, so that way you're also in the system and you're fighting new threats. Because what they're going to look at, and this is something that you kind of hinted at with the guy that got it over in the boot camp. With a boot camp, you've got somebody that's in the industry. Because a lot of these boot camps, what they'll do is they'll bring you in, they'll train you, and then they'll have you work on things for actual companies sometimes. And so you'll actually be inside of it. Because there was a tech boot camp that I was looking to sign up for, and a part of the weekly sessions, this was a longer one, right? I think this one was like 16 weeks. But by the end, they actually contract you out to an organization so you get that real time experience. So that way, once you actually get on LinkedIn, you've got experience working basically a free internship. So, make sure you stay on top of those things.
hmm
Um, and so I really appreciate you. Did you have any more advice for Duran?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things kind of you can have imposter syndrome. You can feel like, oh, I may not have the skills or the ability to be able to be here. But let me tell you this is that if you're getting interviews, that means that they see that you are able to do the job. Right? They're just trying to figure out if they like you or not.
Mm,
Okay. So if you're getting interviews, if you do go ahead and get this job, then that means that you are here, you're able to do the job, you have the skills, don't ever doubt yourself. You have put in the work. So all you need to do is just get on the right path to be able to achieve that goal of getting a job in cybersecurity.
that's huge. That's huge. Thanks, bro. And that's the biggest thing, man, is being in there with confidence and making people like you. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. Like 90% of the game, especially in IT, is likability. Because there's a lot of cats that are really, really good. Oh man, they can code their way. They can attack threats all day, but nobody likes them. And when nobody likes you, guess what? That means you're easily replaceable. Eventually,
Tommy,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. Can I add in something else after you
Yeah,
finish?
go ahead. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So another thing I'm realizing now as well is that in addition to people liking you, we also want to be respected as well.
Yes.
I think there's actually, likability is one thing, but you also want to be more respected than anything, because what will happen is people will like you, but then they can feel like they can push over you,
Hmm.
and you want to make sure that you can stand your ground when it comes to especially corporate,
Hmm.
because people will try you, especially I don't know if Durant is black or not,
He
but
is.
yeah, so as a black man working in corporate, let me let you know is that people will look down on you just because of who you are. So being respected and also being good at what you do, and also being liked is extremely important. So
100%.
connecting with people outside of your own team, talking to talking to people. You can even talk to some of these executives and CEOs and CFOs and stuff like that. I've spoken to senior VPs, senior directors, and I just spring up conversation with them. I'm not scared to be able to talk to somebody, even if they have a higher position than me.
Hmm.
So that will get you a lot further than if you just do your job and then go home.
Yeah, yeah. I'm glad you said that because there's a blog post that I'm gonna talk that I'm writing tomorrow on Medium.com. You can find me at the Hungry Millennial at Medium. And it's about, and I've already basically got my outline written out. It's about the difference between the worker bee, the hard worker, and the valuable asset to the team. And that's one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is, yeah, you can show up early and leave late, but they would much rather have the person that shows up a little early and then they leave on time, but they go and they socialize with the team a little bit. We're not talking about too much. We ain't doing a whole lot, but at the same time, your presence matters, right? So when something does come up, you get a shot at those opportunities. But if you're not there, if you're not present, your work isn't going to speak for itself. I spent the majority of my military career thinking, hey, go in there, work hard, do this, do that, but nobody knew who I was, right? But once I started networking and socializing, while I was on my deployment, I got 3 certifications, bro.
Hmm.
The cybersecurity course, I got in there for free because somebody liked me. I was networking, putting them in different places, and once you start doing those things, and you stand your ground, there were times the person that liked me that helped me get into the cybersecurity course. There were times where I actually told her no to a lot of things that we had going on. But being equipped with the right information at the right time makes you a valuable asset to the team. And so, transitioning a little bit. So what are some of the things that what are your thoughts on AI in tech? What are you seeing? Because I was seeing things where like people was typing in different code and AI was kind of creating the structure for the code to put them in there. What do you think the industry is going to look like in tech in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, so I think of AI as a tool. Um, as a data engineer, we do use AI in certain standpoints, along with our data scientists. Um, what I see is going to happen is that we have a lot more businesses based off of AI.
Hmm.
We will have a lot more tools related to it. You see, Google came out with Google Bard to go like be competitive with OpenAI with ChatGPT.
Mm.
Bing, I think, has their own AI search engine as well. So you have this innovation that's going on with all of these big companies. Like Google laid off a whole bunch of folks, right? And then they like, okay, well, let's come up with this new tool for AI. It didn't necessarily replace the people's jobs,
Hmm.
but it is a tool that they can use to be able to generate more income,
Okay.
right? So let me tell you is that there's a lot of things coming on with AI. Um, let me tell you, it's like you're gonna start seeing. um, filters on like Instagram that utilizes AI. You're going to start seeing these AI artists, right? I'm sure you have seen,
Yeah, I've
the
seen that.
rap songs. They had the biggest one being with Drake and The Weeknd. They had a rap song with them put together. And it wasn't actually them rapping. It was somebody wrote the song, utilized their voice, and then were able to um, create a song based off of their voice, but just rapped it over the rap. And
Right.
I've seen this stuff in real life when I went to Technologies of Color. We had a speaker one day, and he utilized Chat GPT to be able to write a rap song, but in somebody else's like tone, right? How they would write a song. So they created a song that was in the tone of Takeoff about a
Wow.
specific topic,
Wow.
and it was probably one of the coolest things. We all just rapped it together.
Mhm.
But you can see stuff like that. You can see so many different businesses based off of it. And then there's going to be their copycats. Like I said with Google Bard, you even have like a Chat GPT, like super Chat GPT. You have like all these other companies being created just because of it.
Wow.
So,
Wow.
and people say that they're gonna, people are gonna lose their jobs. And I think that people are gonna lose their jobs because of AI. There are going to be some people who do. You see it when you walk into Walmart. I walked into Walmart and Kroger earlier today, and you only see like one line that actually has like people in it, and everything else is like automated. You just
Oh, and it,
scan everything.
bruh, it's crazy. Did you see that McDonald's? That's like AI automated. Like everything is the
Hmm.
whole McDonald's is automated.
Yep.
That is wild. And my problem is I like I told you I'm kind of an introvert, so like I'm cool. I be beep beep beep. I get in, get out. I'm done. You know what I'm saying? But it's just wild, the emerging technology, and I think it just brings us back to the fact that you know we talk about job security.
Hmm.
Job security is what you make it. I also use AI to like help formulate different podcast things. Like some of the questions that I generate, like I'll use that as a tool to help me there. Some emails, different things like that. I'll use those things to, help me fill out, certain gaps. You know what I'm saying? Sometimes you just reach a blank, you're like, okay, help me fill in the gaps here so that way I can be more productive with my time. So you're buying back your time. You know what I mean? And it does research too. So when you talked about the offset, the songs, and them creating it in the tone of offset or whatnot, the thing is you can actually feed it a sample, a writing sample. Here's this. This is getting dangerous because I hope no high school students is watching this. But you can send them a writing sample. You can feed it a writing sample and be like, write this in the style of me, and then you take it, and Google has like some type of a tool where they'll take it and they can source it and find sources for you in Google. It's
Hmm.
really crazy, and they can pull sources for these papers. It's wild. Like AI is going crazy out here. But I think what I find is a lot of times it's overwhelming because I can see a lot of times when people are posting on it, like it's very common on LinkedIn in the comments. A lot of people are using AI to create their LinkedIn posts, and
Hmm.
so I'm seeing that their content isn't original, and it's just bothering me because I'm looking at these two pieces. I'm like, yeah, no, Chat GPT wrote both of these responses.
I have done it myself. Yes. I recently did it. Recently did it. I'm one of those
Bro, it's like I'm
people.
tired of responding to this. Right
Yep.
click, copy paste.
Respond. Uh, you know what, Tommy? Let me also add this in too. Is that I recently saw a post, and it was of a building that said, "ChatGPT finish building this building," saying that the construction workers are needed, right? And I would agree that yes, construction workers are needed. Um, but when I think about it, they have, like, I went to the MODA, the Museum of Design and Architecture
Mhm.
in Atlanta. It's right across from the High Museum, and they had a 3D printer in there that built buildings.
Mhm.
And a lot of this, I have actually seen 3D printed buildings as well.
Mhm.
So it's pretty interesting to see, like, how long it would take for you to be able to see this being mass produced.
Mhm.
Now, I don't believe that all jobs are going to be taken by AI or automation or anything. I think that there's going to be a tool that can help with it. But when it comes to like software engineers, you're going to need software engineers to be able to speak with the business teams who don't understand the
Oh,
technical
100%.
aspects.
100%.
Um, and you need creativity in addition
Yes.
to all of this. So AI just isn't there to where they can mass produce creation of buildings. It takes hours upon hours to be able to
And then the
build a
price.
building.
And
Yes,
then the
and it's very
labor and the
expensive.
forethought, and then the management of the teams that are actually doing those things. I think
Mhm.
one of the biggest things is when technology does change, there are always new opportunities in the future, and as well as the present. We've seen this with the Industrial Revolution, and we've seen trains and trucks and cars and things come along. And then, you see all this technology with Uber and all those things. You still needed people to drive those vehicles. Most cars are not, self-driving, and even then, they can't necessarily pinpoint human interactions as well as they need to. And so I think that's going to be huge is taking advantage of all the opportunities that present themselves. And that was the biggest reason why I had this episode is because I want people to think, wholeheartedly think about the 360 picture of where they can be. Some of the jobs, like some of the roles that I was looking at, I mean, AWS certified cloud practitioner, $154,000 median salary, right? That is a lot of money. And then once you start talking about stacking like your dad did, right? He's got the eye to. So I'm a planner, and my problem is I plan to look at the end result to start the process. And I'm working on myself in that, right? Because you can't necessarily do that, right? Life just doesn't work that way. So I'm working on taking things day by day. But when I talk about these things on the channel, I'm learning Spanish in the background. Like once we get off this podcast, I got a Spanish lesson that I'm tapping into. I'm studying stocks. I'm studying technical analysis. When you break past a certain point in your life, you still got to be padding those stats. So shout out to your pops, you know what I'm saying, for putting you on and putting you in a position and not only telling you the way to go, but showing the way through his actions. That's crazy right there. That's beast mode. And that's how you build legacy. As we wrap up, what do you have for the audience as we wrap up?
Yeah, so for the audience, take it from me. I have been through a lot when it comes to getting into this industry. I am a huge advocate for people who are going like the boot camp route or they're going the college route to be able to achieve their goals in IT and tech. Um, the first thing that you have to do is just start and show if you actually have an interest in it. You actually have to go through and put in the work. Um, and don't get afraid about these layoffs and everything with AI. Don't be afraid about that. Just utilize that to be able to build your own stuff up and build your own skills because there's going to be a job out there for you. You're going to be able to do a great job with with gaining your skills and being able to grow within the corporate environment. And then if you want to be able to go outside of the corporate environment after a certain period of time, then there's a lot of opportunities for you for business through going through tech. There's a lot of people who start up their own consultant firm. They start up their own way of teaching. They start up their own boot camps. So if you want to be able to go into corporate and then be able to get out of corporate, tech is also another way for you to be able to do that as well. So you won't be afraid of AI if you have a backup plan as well.
Yeah, got to be intentional and take initiative. Anyway, hey, last thing from Duran. Duran said, thank you. He appreciates you. He said it was very informative. Hey, no problem, bro. We here for you.
Yes,
You
sir.
got myself. You got my cell number, and his contact information is, on his channel. Tap into Before the Billions and Black Man in Tech. He's got some really, really great, interviews out there. Just talking about, he makes it real spicy out there. You know what I'm saying? As much as you talk about tech, you talk about the numbers and the dollars and things like that. So, hey, you know what I'm saying? Hey, work on your fitness, work on your finance, your growth, and your leadership, and all of those things are going to come in tow, and that's going to keep you on the path to success. So, B4B. Hey, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you for coming on.
Yes, sir. Salute.
All right, y'all.